This is my real reaction to the News Nation anatomy of the CEO murder, what they're talking about it, and it makes sense. You know, these guys are talking feasibly, and there's no way that was a professional hit. I mean, that dude was somebody that probably had somebody affected by being turned down for insurance, and which so many people feel that way about because they get denied coverage for things they've been paying into for years. I mean, everybody feels like insurance is a huge racket, you know, and scam. And you know, sure they pay a lot into a lot of things, but they also deny even more. So somebody was upset, and they went and took matters into their own hands, like so many people want to do, but they just don't.
Your take on that video, specifically whether you thought this might be a professional hit or whether this might have just been a disgruntled either co-employee, fired employee, someone who didn't have insurance, or maybe some other disgruntled reason.
I think Steve and I may see this the same way. I think he'll see this as a gun enthusiast who is, for whatever reason, it looks to me like he's angry. There are several reasons he looks that way to me. But this doesn't look like a professional killing at all to me, not even a little bit. It looks like somebody who's angry and who is used to being around guns at a range, that style of shooting. So from the way he shoots to the distance he shoots the victim, this all says amateur on it.
Like I said, I mean, you know, it looks like an amateur, and it's not a professional hit, but we would have done a lot different. Amateur guy just went up and shot him in the back, you know, and from a distance, and nothing about that cries out professional hit at all. So I guarantee this was just somebody that knew someone that was affected by being declined or denied insurance coverage.
There are a couple of different ways you stand when you shoot. I'm sure Steve will cover this. I'll just touch on them. And there's the one he's in is like an isosceles stance and he's behind him. If you're a real professional, you don't do it there. You walk up and you get him in the head,
That's
and
not
that's
pro.
about it. Or you can get him two in the chest and one in the head. And then that's another one that the gangsters used to do all the time. And you probably wouldn't use a gun like a 9 millimeter. So
Yeah, plus they wouldn't have left. Professional would not have left casings laying around. They would have likely used a revolver or a pillowcase or something to catch the casings. I mean, there's so many other ways that a professional would have done it. And this is just somebody very upset and wanting to take matters into their own hands.
something that would leave the shells behind. You'd use a 38 or 22 or something like that. And one of the things that really tipped me off as to this is not a professional. Also, is the way when he shoots the gun, and when you shoot a gun and you cycle it, and whatever the suppressor is on there, people will see that as a silencer, but it's really a suppressor because it suppresses the sound. And he's racking or cycling the gun as he does that. And when he does, he's doing it sideways and he's pulling on it like this. That's amateur hour. 90% of people who've shot for years, you'll hold it up here and do this, and you'll keep it close to you because you have to go, you may have to shoot again from there if something's going on. So there's so many things in here. I'm afraid I'm going to step on Steve, but I'm sure he's got 90 million things as well. And one of the other things
Well,
that
for
bothered
starters,
me about this,
you know what? Yeah,
what?
say that real quick because I want to get to that suppressor versus silencer too, because I could see that was not a normal gun. But go ahead and finish your thought.
Okay. When as the gun, it actually does, I think, jam on him one time there, and that's when the gun is open. And I'll use this one to give you an example, because when the gun jams, it usually ends up like this, and this is open. And as he's trying to clear it, he's using his hand like this as he hits it, and it's almost like he's afraid it's going to hurt him. Usually what happens in a case like that is the shell will come up and it'll get stuck in there. And there's a way to go about doing that really quickly, and then you pop it back and you're ready to go again. But everything about this screams amateur to me. Everything about it screams amateur.
So, okay. Yeah, and you know what, Steve? I want you to come in and weigh in on two things that Scott just touched on, and I want you to dig deeper. Number one is that jamming and why a gun might have jammed 3 times and needed to be hit like that. And number two, I thought it was a silencer, and you've disabused me of that. What is the difference of a silencer and a suppressor? And would that have meant none of us could hear all this?
A silencer is just the civilian word for suppressor. It's what they call it in the movies, but Technically, it's a suppressor because it changes the sound. It doesn't make it silent.
So what about the jamming? And we'll run some of the video
Yeah, so we
again
don't really know.
that shows
So
him hitting.
yeah, I'm not sure that the gun is actually jamming so much as failure to feed. Um, so they're different. And what Scott was showing was called a stovetop jam. But essentially, in order for the ammo to get from here to here, which is where it fires, so normally the bullet is sitting, right here. When the gun goes off, as the bullet goes out the front, the casing exerts force against the back, and that cycles the gun. So in a proper cycling, that goes all the way back and then comes forward.
Holy
And then when
shit.
it comes back again,
It's loaded?
it ejects around and then it comes forward. But
Wow.
if you're using subsonic ammo, which is ammo that has a velocity of less than 1,100 feet per second, because you want it to be very quiet, it sometimes is underpowered. And so the slide will come back a little bit, but not far enough to eject that casing and not far enough to load the next round. It'll go back partly, and because now you just have a spent casing in there, you would manually have to throw that spent casing out in order to get the next one in. So he could be having that short cycling because of a lack of powder in the subsonic ammo, or if you saw in his stance, which was a reverse weaver stance, where he had his shooting foot forward. Typically, you would have your shooting foot back. He's got his feet. Yeah, there you go. So he's got a proper footwork there, but you look, his left leg is up on its side. So I'm right on there with Scott. You would have optimal positioning if you were a professional, not alternating your feet
You
forward and
realize you said
backwards
it
between
wrong.
your shots. And you would have tested this gun to make sure that it cycles properly with the ammo. It seems like he anticipated that the gun might not cycle, so he may have practiced with that subsonic ammo. And I also agree with Scott on the distance issue. That's a lot of distance unnecessarily placed between himself and the subject.
Okay, I got two more
again,
questions. Yeah,
It's funny
I,
it says
I have two more
subject and
questions
not
and not
target.
enough time. So first one goes to you, Steve, and that is
Target.
that when he's popping out the ejected casings, they're still scattered on the sidewalk and 3 live rounds. Can you explain that and how that could be really beneficial to the investigators?
Well, the gun can leave marks on the casings, and then those can help track that to the gun. It leaves marks on the casings, and the firing pin also leaves a mark on the primer, which is also unique to each gun. So those things could be used to help trace the gun if they locate it. The other thing that can inhibit the cycling of the gun is that if you don't hold the gun firmly, and so typically you would want this arm straight so that you're able to keep the gun frame in place so that the slide can go all the way back. But you'll see in that video, he's got his shooting arm cocked and his support arm straight, which is also backwards. And that will also lead to a short cycling of the gun.
Not a super pro. Okay, just a couple seconds left, but Scott, the way he exited, he walked quietly. He was never nervous. He wasn't jumpy. He did his shooting. He walked right up to the victim, shot again, sauntered off quietly into the streets of Manhattan. What does that tell you, and what does that do for cops who are investigating?
That looks to me like it's an adrenaline dump he's had, because he's building up to this. He's been waiting for it. He's been in the coffee shop. He's been standing around. No telling how long he's been waiting. So
He probably planned his exit already. He already knew what he was going to do.
he does the shooting, and when he's finished, all that anger and everything up that he's got locked inside is sort of released, and that adrenaline, after that big dump of adrenaline, then he starts to relax, but he's just angry as he leaves. That's why we see that waddle as he's going away. Because you'll notice he walks almost normally at the top. He doesn't walk at the gait of a military person or a police officer. But then he gets that waddle as he's paying attention to the gun because he's trying to keep his balance. He's not used to doing things like this. He's not a proficient gun handler. So I think that's an adrenaline dump. And after that, you're sort of worn out. And with all the anger and all that, I think that's what we're seeing him experience there. That's why the slow walk.
And just real quick about the gait, because so often I've seen killers caught by the way they walk. Do you see anything specific here?
Yes, this is really important, and the police are going to be watching this like a hawk. His gait changes as he goes. If you're in the military, if you're in the police, something like that, there's a specific gait that you walk at because you practice marching around all the time, especially in the military. Now, in this guy's gait, see how it starts right there. His left leg is forward and his other leg is back because he's still walking forward to shoot, like Steve was explaining earlier. Then he starts straightening up as he tries to get that. The rest of get it re-racked or get his the barrel cleared, in other words, and then he starts waddling, and then he goes to normal as he walks away. There's the adrenaline dump right in there, and now he's going to slowly get back to normal as he starts. There it goes. Yeah, it's going to be more when he gets across the street because he's trying to get his stuff back together. He's got to put the gun away. He's got to get his backpack ready. He's got to get ready to change clothes, do whatever he's going to do, and for whatever he's going to use that backpack for.
All that's coming in just a moment. I'm not leaving out that clue that you just mentioned, the backpack. I noticed it was bulging, so that story is coming up. But I have.
Yeah, well, the dude. I'm sticking to my guns. That was just somebody really upset with how something was mishandled, how they feel it was mishandled, and it is what it is, man. I mean, clearly he was not a pro. Didn't look like he had any kind of training whatsoever. I mean, he might have used a gun a few times at a shooting range, but man, I can't even say I feel bad for that CEO because of all of the lives that they have ruined by declining coverage that people paid into. I tried to be unopinionated about it, but I mean, even our insurance is I mean, like dental insurance, they won't cover for people to get teeth replacement or whatever, and health insurance won't pay it either, even though people missing teeth and not being able to smile and eat and all that, it becomes health issues, mental health issues, physical health, physiological health. I mean, all kinds of health issues because people can't eat, people can't smile, people can't talk to other people. They're uncomfortable with themselves, and in both insurances, dental and healthcare, decline so many procedures and prosthetics for stuff like that. So it's very upsetting. Very upsetting. I get it, man. All right. This is done.